we all have people in our family with whom we like really disagree on political issues, or people we know who have stopped speaking to each other, or and there that creates a real pain point that is also labor intensive, that is also draining, right? So I don't know, it's tricky, but I'm glad you brought up the way that we are wired to react to this, because the last little piece of advice I've picked up that I wanted to share is to never humiliate your enemy, whoever that might be, right? One of the things that is most underappreciated that leads to high conflict is humiliation. When people feel disrespected, especially if there's an audience, right? So if they feel publicly disrespected, whether they should or not, Nelson Mandela has this great quote, which is, "There's no one more dangerous than one who's been humiliated, even when you humiliate him rightly." And so that is something to keep in mind. Another reason to resist social media and people who make a living by humiliating others. We know from the research, there's a great experiment by a psychologist named Kipling Williams in Canada. He studied what would happen if you bring subjects, say college students, into a lab, and you ask them to do a brainstorming exercise. And while they're waiting for the experiment to begin, one of them finds a ball just sitting there. And there's three people sitting there. They don't know each other. And they start tossing the ball. And unbeknownst to the subject, the experimental subject, the other two work for the professor. And so they're just kind of like playfully tossing this ball between the three of them. And then at some point, the two researchers just cut out the third person and start just tossing it between the two of them without any explanation. And they've done this over and over again. And what they find is that the third person, when they're first left out, they kind of try to smile and re-ingratiate themselves, because it's really painful to be, even in this really small, tiny way, it's really painful to humans to be left out in this way. But then when that doesn't work, they immediately withdraw. Then they experience this intense surge of sadness and anger that they describe later. And this just takes seconds, really. And they start looking, for their phone or looking in their bag or finding ways to save face. And they've now done this with 5,000 people in 62 countries, some while their brains were being scanned. And what they show is that the parts of your brain that light up when you're in physical pain light up when you are excluded in this way, right? When even in a really silly way. So rejection is debilitating to us, and we will do things we regret, and we will do things that don't seem to make sense when we feel humiliated or rejected. So that's just important to keep in mind. And it's been helpful to me, at least, to explain why people are acting the way they're acting.